Now is the chance for Laguna. I have been on the fence of his character being a member of the main cast since it was seemingly kind of put out there by Mishima. I don't dislike him, but I don't really like him. My problem, though, is the fact he's a former enemy and very sus to be added onto the Eden Zero, and I'm just worried, can he be trusted? What exactly is his aim? Like, is he just some kind of guy who's, like, trying to go, like, along with, wherever the wind takes him kind of thing? Or, like, what exactly is he overall planning to do, or at least accomplish, to whether or not he can be a part of the Eden Zero crew? With Jin was an enemy, but we knew that Jin overall, his priority is what he can do for his sister, and it really just came down to how exactly are the Eden Zero people going to win him over. We saw the stuff with Mueller, everything around that, helping his sister out. So his was at least an area where he could look at it and say, like, okay, I don't know when it's going to happen or where it's going to happen, but this is, like, the key component. Even way back when his character was still, like, an enemy, the second we found out about his sister, it was clear this is the focal point of his character. This is what's going to direct him which way or the other. Whereas with Laguna, we don't know anything about him. We don't know if Laguna is secretly part of another group or, like, what exactly Laguna is up to. But what we do know is Laguna is, he's got his own things that he's keeping to himself. And because of that, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I can trust him around the crew. But this could be the events that end up leading to me having a better, stance on his character. Because I would assume that given seems to be a fight for him, that we're going to be seeing instances of his past, flashbacks and stuff, some of his own inner dialogue. We're going to probably be reading a couple thought bubbles and stuff from him. So we're going to be able to actually get takes from Laguna that give us an idea about him in general, and obviously, like I said, where he's going, what his plans are, and whatnot. The chapter itself was kind of, like, for the most part, like, it just seemed kind of like regular, like, setting up some more events. Like, you had the members of the Eden Zero crew. You had Sister and Hermit getting armed up to go and try and get Witch back. Like, they're obviously thinking about what happened with Valkyrie. They don't want to ever have to deal with that again. So they're gonna go out there. Couch Walk had a really good part where she's like kind of just telling them, like, hey, you guys, like, don't just storm, like, the area. I can understand, like, you're upset, but, like, you gotta believe in the other people. Hermit, it's like, when you think about it, they're both capable of fighting to a degree, but they're both not fighters. Hermit is like a computer person. Like, she would be better on the Eden Zero ship, protected with all of its systems, hacking into their, like, whatever she can inside of Narrow 66 and their base and stuff. Sister is a healer. Sister can do her whole over destroy heal. I can't remember exactly what it's called off the top of my head, but she, for the most part, is a healer. A healer is valuable. There's not nearly as many healers as there are in other series. Like, when you look at something like, you look at Black Clover, you have a lot of healing characters. But when you look at, like, what Mishima's always done, like, he only has a couple healers in his series. There's only a certain amount of people that can mend wounds when the scenario needs it. And she has, like, those energy drinks that can, like, heal people up, but it's like, that's also produced by her and limited. So I would assume that, like, if she goes down again, they're going to be in some trouble because they're not going to have any way of healing anybody if they need to. She is a vital character that should be protected at all times, especially in a wartime environment like what's going on right now. But Couchball pretty much not putting them in their place, but kind of just, like, putting them into a proper state of thinking, like, hey, you guys can't just go out there. Like, we have to understand the situation, understand what's going on, understand what, like, Shiki and all of them are doing, and trust them with what they're doing. And I thought that was a really good moment for Couchbo. Couch was actually, like, a pretty good side character. Like, it's really weird because she hasn't had any major moments. It's always just been like there's a part where she's off on the side and, like, she gives some form of nugget of wisdom to characters. She's like the soccer mom who's got just, like, a little bit of readiness to kind of, like, say, hey, like, calm yourself down, quit fuming. Let me kind of, like, give you the perspective of somebody who isn't speaking entirely off irrational emotions and stuff, which is good. I like that they've got, like, a sort of third party in this scenario to give them another like pretty much the business as it is. Like she's just telling them like how they should be going. But while Shiki and Rebecca are going through the halls, they end up running into these strings. It actually looks like military combat wire, and I always think those are cool. They're really scary just from the idea of if you ran into those, you get sliced up by these wires. It's razor thin, but they're so tight that you're gonna pretty much run into just this micro blade. But it was more of a trap because Shiki goes and breaks one, and it wraps around him and Rebecca, and that initially causes them to have like intense romantic feelings for each other, getting close to kissing. And Happy Bot comes in with his cool little energy tail. I thought that was neat. It's funny because like more people are talking about like Happy Bot. I'm not calling him Happy. He's Happy Bot. He is a robot version. I'll get to like my funny take additional on that in a second. But it's funny how people are talking more about his little sword tail more than anything. But what I do find funny is, similar to how Plu was in Fairy Tail, he didn't have nearly as many of like the kind of scenes as Plu and Rave Master did, and the Happy in Eden Zero doesn't have the same kind of scenes that Happy in Fairy Tail did. I would assume that Mishima's next series, when he has a version of Pino in that, she'll have some form of moments, but it's not going to be like the same thing as... Like, it's not going to be the same thing as Pino in Eden Zero. It's going to be essentially like moments like these where you get kind of like cool little moments where they come out and do something. But I like that Mishima is giving, like, in like the stake of it instead, like cool like weapons and stuff. He's got his little laser tail. But he goes and breaks the thread, and that's when they start getting hostile towards each other, start just getting really aggressive. And Izuna ends up walking out and explaining that her Ether Gear Red Destiny, it pretty much will... like swell up emotions in people. Like it brought all the way up their like, you know, they're gonna have feelings for each other. Like I would assume that Shiki's is way more at least pure right now rather than Rebecca's. Rebecca's definitely had moments where you could tell she's got a thing for Shiki, and then converts it into like aggression, and then they just start brawling, and she's like saying how they're gonna pretty much fight until one of them is dead. And during that, they are still like they still have a degree of awareness because they start being in tears because you know, they're beating up on the people that they care about, and that's when Laguna ends up turning them into water. Obviously his power pretty useful. Like it's one of those niche powers where, I mean, if you get it off, you get it off. It's going to be good in most scenarios where you can actually get it done, but this is a case where clearly it would get done. And he ends up like just putting them in like a water bottle for safekeeping. If they're mixed together, or like just thinking about it, like what's going on? They're essentially two bodies of water that are now melding together. I wonder if that's going to be like some form of sex joke after this. I kind of hope it is, just because I think that would be pretty funny. But Izuna ends up remembering, Laguna ends up remembering Izuna as the former boss, I guess, of Oasis. And there was a moment at the beginning of the chapter with Goodwin, and he was thinking about like the former boss, and Laguna is just like saying like, "Oh no, Prince, is that you?" And she's like, "Don't call me that. You know, I've abandoned the Oasis." So we're gonna end up seeing that flashback soon, and what happened to her, what brought her into the scenario that she's in, being around Shura and being fine with somebody who just openly kills people for little to no effort. I'm guessing whatever happened to her that caused Shura to have a form of affection for her is going to be what exactly ends up turning. Because there was that moment where that one dude was saying how he was, or she used to be like a concubine of Shura. I don't know if he was entirely meant like she was like a slave or just like a prostitute or what exactly it was. But I'm guessing at some point, my guess is like she got captured at some point or something and brought to Shura, and like Shura was gonna kind of like have her as like a slave, but maybe ended up kind of like developing a relationship with her, and that's why he doesn't take well to people saying anything that he could perceive as negative about her. That's to me is like the interesting aspect of her character that I really want to see, is like what happened that put her bonded with Shura. So we'll see. Maybe her Ether Gear did it. Like maybe there's something kind of like how you had the fight between Juvia and Merity, where it wasn't done it wasn't settled in like really a combat sense, because they were linked with the sensory link. Juvia could feel all of Merity's emotions, and Merity could feel all of Juvia's emotions. So it was because of this set power that they were able to understand each other. Whereas, like, you could maybe get something in the form of how Red Destiny works, that Shura and Izuna were able to kind of, like, vibe with each other. That's a really interesting setup that I want to see. Like, the backstory in general is going to be cool, because I want to find out what happened to her specifically, and obviously, like, seeing stuff with Laguna and whatnot. But my big focus on Izuna's backstory is, like, what exactly ended up getting her so close to Shura. So, a solid chapter. It read really fast. It was definitely one of the faster chapters of Eden Zero that I've read in a long time, just because, like, a lot of it, there was, like, those scenes where Shiki and Rebecca are just fighting, and, like, Moscow coming. A lot of those parts are just, like, very little dialogue, very little, like, large-scale conversation, lots of just action and small bits of general wording. So, after you get to the point where Couchbo kind of, like, helps pretty much put Hermit and Sister, like, on a calmer base, like, the rest of the chapter reads really quickly. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, but for the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But that, appreciate everybody's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.